John Fleming says, good luck. Says it better not be more than good luck. You guys have already gone on record saying that you should forward us on this.
That's for the Board of Estimates, right?
Council's got to approve special appropriation too.
First, who goes first?
Board of Estimate first, then council. In council, you need a 2/3 vote. Yeah, we got it all laid out. Of course, you know, since they baked it into the budget, you know, the millions of dollars that Duff promised them isn't going to happen.
If they don't do it, we just say we can't implement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blame them.
And we'll take our chance.
Yeah.
Take you back for a special appropriation.
He's very unique. I've seen.
Dead ahead is our new Norwalk report. Yeah. Yeah, she came over to my house and interviewed me, get background information.
Oh, really? I was gonna say. I know, Eric just sat around his house.
Things are looking up. It's funny, Mike. My age being 60 years old, I'm thinking, I wonder if I could set her up with my son. You know?
How did that happen?
Yeah. How did I get that far up? Just so everybody knows, there's a committee meeting going on in another room on the curriculum committee, and so we're waiting for them to finish up and come in, and then we'll start up. Okay. Thank you for looking into that stuff at Norwalk High. And some of it's like,
You survived fraud and taxes. Hey, could I send some?
yes.
They're trying to figure out how, like, for their family to give them a gift.
Gift taxes.
So they can buy a house.
Chairman Lyons.
Obviously, they're gonna exceed.
Would somebody like to just go check in and see?
Concerned about though is this computer situation.
Yeah, let me go see what they're doing. The gift tax exclusion is 14 grand.
It's 25. You can give 12.5 to each.
14.
Oh, 14 each.
Like one parent can give each child 14. The other parent can give each child 14.
What about husband and wife?
Major failure.
A husband and wife.
No, like if the kid is married.
A husband and wife can give each
Thank you for following up.
son and daughter-in-law 14 each.
So you could.
50.
Teachers taking a bunch of kids. That a Japanese teacher set up.
Yeah, there was only 4 kids, and it was during school.
Yeah, they go in May.
Okay, so they could get a sub for the Spanish teacher, but they can't for the Japanese teacher. So the greater good is for the Japanese teacher to stay and teach their classes.
Could, the guy did set the program up, you could have a guy who's taking kids to Japan every year, who's probably covered, and a homeless teacher who's only a 0.4 FTE, but I suppose that's too much creativity for this place.
They can't now, Mike, because they're not on the same schedule. This is why they need to be on the same schedule. Okay? We presented to the middle school redesign committee last week. It's wonderful. It's a modified block schedule.
Right.
But it gets them all on the same schedule so you can exchange people.
Right.
Right? They can't do that now. They can do it next year. We can go ahead and get the middle school thing done. And it will come to that. You're gonna have people speaking against it tonight.
You're never going to get consent.
Yep, that's why she's here. She's urging people to come.
This is one of the people fighting in school.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Parent or teacher?
I think they're people, but I think
They've been brainwashed. Our favorite principal.
Here we go.
And a
So let's see, Shirley's, Heidi's out, anybody else? Oh, Neville.
Right. Hey, Brian,
Steven, how are you?
are you over the hump? Relieved?
Yeah. Exhausted.
Yeah.
Hi, Sherelle.
How are you? What happened? Oh. What's up with it? Well, it's pulled up.
She has it on.
That's it up to, you're really out of it.
I'm
Out of it.
Someone has longer hair than me. I'm way overdue for a trim. I survived through tax season, so.
Oh, you want Cheryl? That's your thing. Okay, I'm good.
There he is, Marty. Okay.
All right, I think that's. Should I sit? All right, I think that's everybody, right?
Just getting up.
Okay. All right, we're going to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We actually, the people that we were going to highlight in the spotlight tonight were unable to make tonight's meeting, so we're going to move that to a future meeting. And so we will move right into the public comments section, which will be over to you, Mr. Barbas.
Okay, our first public comment. In our comments, please introduce yourself, give your address for the record, and you're allowed 3 minutes. And when you get to 2.5, I'll put my hand up. So our first speaker would be Lori Perret.
Mind if I close this?
No?
Go ahead.
Better sight? My name is Lori Perret, and I live at 17 Live Oak Road in Norwalk. I am the current PTO president of West Rocks Middle School. I read what was made public regarding the middle school redesign. I am specifically referencing the PDF file, Middle Grades Design and Improvements, March 2016, found on the Norwalk Public Schools website. The section that is most concerning is the timeline for implementation. These are major changes being mandated, and it's not even clear yet exactly what those changes are going to be. According to the document, in order to learn how to implement these changes, middle school principals will attend a 3-day leadership program for the rollout. From there, a line item states August 2016 to have on-site based training for school leadership teams and practitioners, which I assume are the teachers. Has an outline been created and not made public that will dictate how much on-site based training will be given? Is there a direct correlation to how many elements the design committee chooses to implement in the fall that determines the length of the on-site based training in August? On-site based training for a maximum of 1 month in August. That's all the training teachers will receive to help them learn and teach an entire year's worth of new curriculum in a subject they potentially have never taught. The August on-site based training for the teachers looks to be the most critical time period in the document. With the design committee providing at least 5 promising elements for the middle schools to implement, there's a lot of weight being placed on teachers to implement new elements they are unfamiliar with. In order for them to do so effectively, teachers, principals, and administrators should visit a school in Connecticut where elements similar to the one chosen by the design committee are shown live, so the teachers are hands-on, seeing the elements in use. This would need to be done before the end of the school year, which is unlikely to be arranged given the elements haven't been finalized and the tight time frame for the first implementation this fall. It is challenging to see how any redesign in Norwalk Public Schools will be successful when a committee is going to dictate the elements of change and the team who implements it hasn't seen it yet. As a parent, this looks like a big risk for our 4 middle schools and for our students. In order for change to be embraced, there must be a thorough explanation of what is being changed and why it's being changed. The document does share why the changes are needed at the middle school level, but what is to change is still being defined. How can a timeline, even at this high level, be developed without knowing what elements will be implemented? In addition, enabling our teachers to see one or more of the elements being used by other middle schools can expel concern and get all of our middle schools on board for the change.
3 minutes.
Respectfully submitted, Lori Perret.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jill Arvanites.
Hi, my name is Jill Arvanites. I am at 11 Esquire Road in Norwalk. I am the parent of a 7th grader at West Rocks and a 5th grader at Cranberry School. With just about 40 school days left until my son is promoted to 6th grade, I should be thrilled. I have worked tirelessly along with some of these parents here to raise about $13,000 for field trips and graduation expenses. We've had an amazing year, and our long days of fundraising on top of careers and homework and projects and sports are finally coming to a close, and our kids are finally getting to go to middle school. Well, they're going to learn real subjects. However, I'm growing increasingly concerned. I attended the strategic operating session held at the South Norwalk Library on April 2nd, and I heard Dr. Adamowski say directly that while no decisions have been made, middle school redesign is primarily targeting 6th grade and will definitely be implemented by September. While the parents at that meeting were told not to be worried, I don't know any other way to be. With only 40 school days left approximately, somehow all 6th grade teachers across the district are going to be able to positively adapt to these changes. A math teacher will be able to effectively teach science, and social studies will be effectively teaching language arts. My concerns essentially fall into 2 buckets, the 2 R's, representation and rigor. Regarding representation, there's a lack of it on the committee that's been appointed to oversee this transition. According to Dr. Adamowski, again at the South Norwalk meeting, with the bulk of the redesign aimed at the incoming 6th grade class, there's only 1 6th grade teacher on the panel and not 1 parent of an incoming 6th grader. We have been told by Dr. Cotter that the 6th grade changes are motivated by A, low 6th grade reading levels, and B, a desire to migrate to STEM-driven schools, yet only guidance counselors and ELA teachers are represented on the committee. I applaud the teachers and the parents who are volunteering their time, and I believe there should be added input from those that the redesign would directly affect. Current 5th grade parents, as well as 6th grade math, language arts, and other affected subjects. Regarding rigor, within the strategic operating plan, the new vision is outlined in which students leave 8th grade equipped to do rigorous high school work. How will every 6th grade teacher in the district be able to switch gears in time to support this goal with so very little, that's 30 seconds left? Mm-hmm. Okay. With so very little time to train and prepare curriculum? Is the administration planning to rely on mind-numbing, fill-in-the-blank worksheets? If that's the plan, these kids will be left behind as it relates to their 7th grade, 8th grade, and high school transition goals. How will it be possible for a teacher to meet a rigorous level of learning in a new subject when no decisions have even been made yet? Implementation without proper onboarding won't support the new vision. Thank you for your time. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Blair Anderson.
Hello, my name is Blair Anderson. I live at 17 Stony Brook Road in Norwalk, Connecticut. I'm the secretary of the PTO at West Rocks Middle School. I have an 8th grader who's graduating from there and also a 5th grader at Cranberry who is going to be going to West Rocks in the fall. I'd like to start by saying I am not opposed to change in the middle school at all. In fact, I applaud the shift to focus on the STEM subjects. That's clearly the wave of the future. However, I do have a grave concern with the timing of these significant changes that are being rushed into implementation in the fall. The changes that are being proposed would require teachers to teach subjects outside of their area of expertise. While teachers may be certified to teach any subject in 6th grade, in reality, most of them haven't taught outside of their specialty area in many years, if ever. It's unreasonable to expect a teacher who's been teaching, for instance, science for 5, 10, 20 years to all of a sudden learn a math curriculum, learn how to teach it, and most importantly, learn how to teach it well in a mere couple of weeks or months. Same with LA and social studies. It's unrealistic, it's unfair, it's borderline irresponsible. We've been told that the low SBAC scores in the middle school grades are being used as a catalyst to fuel the middle school redesign. While those are far from a perfect gauge, I do understand the need for some mechanism by which we evaluate the school and the teacher performance. However, having a science teacher teaching math or an LA teacher teaching social studies or vice versa without the proper training is going to result in lower test scores, not higher test scores. And this incoming 6th grade class is not going to get the underlying level and foundation of education they need in order to succeed in 7th and 8th grade. The students will fail, the teachers and the administration will fail, and ultimately the redesign is going to fail. And watch what happens to the transition to high school. It's going to be negatively impacted as well, since the students will not have been taught effectively in middle school because of the lack of the proper training of the teachers. All of this can be avoided by just slowing down, taking the time to plan, teach, train, and implement what is, at its core, a good idea. Let's not introduce change just for the sake of change. Let's make sure the change is effective. Let's make sure it gets us where we need to be. And in order to do that, we need to have time to properly plan for these significant changes. And on a side note, and equally as concerning to me, is the contradictory and misinformation that is being given to the public. I attended the meeting at the Norwalk South Library as well, where the middle school redesign was discussed, and I raised all of these concerns at that meeting, in response to which Dr. Adamowski had said unequivocally that there would be, quote, no major change to the middle schools for the upcoming year. And he went on to say that the Board of Ed would absolutely not be asking teachers to teach outside of their specialty area this coming year before they've had adequate training. And in spite of that very clear statement by Dr. Adamowski, that's exactly what our teachers are being required to do in the fall. And that contradictory and misleading statements really need to stop. It's confusing and concerning to the public and the parents.
3 minutes.
Okay? Thank you very much for your time.
Jason Morris.
Good evening, Norwalk Board of Education. My name is Jason Morris. I'm a parent of 3 kids. Oldest is going into high school next year. A Navy veteran, and I've been an education advocate for 5 years now, and a candidate for Board of Education in the city of New London. Address is 980 Bank Street. I'm also a member of the New London Parent Advocates. We're a parent group that's been working closely at the board level, policy level, trying to bring a parent voice to those deliberations. I come here tonight because I felt compelled to support the statement the local union made so astutely last month regarding what is known by each district Dr. Adamowski has had a hand in, and that is his strong-arming and authoritarian method of management, or as the NFT put it, management by fear. This crushes teachers in entire districts to the point where they have a form of PTSD once he's done. Yes, he won't be here long. It's an MO that we can trace back to the 90s in Cincinnati. That is where merit pay began, instituted there, where that has no research behind it to actually make teachers perform better. And it was passed by New London's board because they barely understood what was in the strategic operating plan that is in Hartford, or that happened in Hartford as well. In New London, he attempted to start a local charter, that thankfully failed, attempted to bring in TFA, which thankfully failed. He successfully passed student-based budgeting, which exacerbated inequalities, joined AIR in 2004, and you know that organization delivers SBAC now. A past teacher speaker advisor in the now infamous administrator training organization, Supes Academy in Chicago, which is currently wrapped up in an FBI investigation. My recommendation and my advice from a parent from New London, one of the past districts that was crushed, is to scrutinize every bullet in your strategic operating plan. Demand and genuinely listen to public and union input. Reach out to past districts and do your research on each initiative. And the public and union should have the expectation to be at the table and not at the door waiting to enter on the platter. Every harmful bullet I've listed was passed by a board, either by budget line item, contract clause, or resolution, agenda item in your board meetings. You can prevent it in the future to your district, and I hope you do. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joseph Chanderko.
Good evening, Board of Ed. My name is Joseph Chanderko, 163 Chestnut Hill Road. I'm speaking on behalf of the NFT tonight. Serving as the Vice President. Good evening, Dr. Adamowski and the Board of Education members. I come to speak about middle school redesign. Norwalk is a city in transition, and our school system is not exempt from this theme. Our city continues to grow, which places even more pressure on already stretched thin resources. The ability of any organization to adjust and adapt to shifting priorities requires communication and input from all stakeholders. In recent weeks, Dr. Adamowski has appeared to be more open to this concept. During community forums, the topic of middle school redesign was discussed at both South Norwalk and the middle school session. Both of these forums were an attempt to take the pulse of the community about a seismic educational system change. The drastic and potential crushing change that has been discussed is the implementation of block scheduling in the middle school level. The high schools have spent parts of several years researching and training for their implementation of block scheduling. However, the middle school, especially the 6th grade teachers, are being asked to implement it with less than 100 days of planning. There has been no professional development and no discussion of how this will impact our students. It just seems that the idea of extra time spent on a subject will magically produce better results. As teachers, we require time to unpack and expect results. Excuse me. We look to affect our students in the most positive ways with strong delivery of content and also strong classroom management. If proper training and aid is not given, this will slowly turn into a quagmire where all students and teachers lose. The NFT is not against change. It is not against change. However, we are against change that is radical, rushed, and impacts our students in a negative way. The desire to improve is shared by both the NFT and the Board of Ed, and provided it is accompanied with the adequate training and professional development we need, we feel that we can move forward in a positive manner. However, we simply ask that we take a break and slow down the implementation of block scheduling and some of the middle school redesign plans. Taking our time will not injure students, will not injure or harm teachers, and will allow us to put our best foot forward. We need to slow down. A mistake made now impacts these students for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. I don't feel comfortable doing it. I know many of my teachers don't feel comfortable doing it. I'm lucky enough to have an administrator who met with me for over 90 minutes to discuss every single thing that we could possibly come up with. And at the end of the meeting, we had a list twice as long as what we started with because new things come up. We need to slow down to make sure we examine every single thing. Change is good, but change is only good when it's done in a meaningful way with collaboration. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lynn Moore.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Lynn Moore. I'm a 17-year Norwalk resident at 813 Foxborough Drive. I am speaking tonight as the Vice President of NASA, which is the Norwalk Association of School Administrators. As NASA, the union officers meet with the superintendent monthly, which is called union consultation. It is the opportunity for NASA and the superintendent to discuss and resolve issues in a conciliatory manner. Unfortunately, many issues still remain, and now there is a need to begin to make public those concerns. Tonight's topic is middle school. Principals were informed at the December 2015 principals meeting that middle school would be cut by $745,000. There was no discussion with the middle school staffs. The budget cut and notion of design just fell out of the sky and was pronounced done. This reduction has nothing to do with the improvement of student achievement, but everything to do with student achievement. We know that this cut of $745,000 had to do with money. Reducing the budget of middle schools without a proper evaluation of teams, curriculum, and programs is proof that the decision was financial in order that the district could come in at the 3.9 proposed budget. The mantra has been, we spend more money at middle level, more than high school level, that middle schools are failing, and that mantra has been stated over and over as the convincing tool. It is common knowledge that there are very few academic interventions at elementary level, other than eventually moving a student through the PPT process. The district upper level leaders then brought Willard Daggett into the mix. Certainly, if anyone Googles Daggett, it will be found that there are mixed reviews about his middle school work as implemented in communities. But really, it's not about Daggett. It is about collaboration. It is about allowing schools to determine the appropriate models of interventions and improvements at the individual schools. At this point, the message, or maybe it's called a threat, is that the schools must choose a teaming model that will reduce 2 or more grade 6 teachers and will likely reduce the number of elective offerings to our students. None of us in this room is the smartest person in the room. Our teachers and administrators are on the front line. We have implemented programs in many cases without funding from the district because there was
3
no
minutes.
funding. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker will be John Mosby.
Good evening, board. My name is John Mosby. I missed my last board meeting. I'm gonna be very brief tonight. One thing I wanna say to you all, I told you when you first come here that things wasn't gonna work out good. It looked like the public, I'm talking to blacks and whites all over the town, and Mr. Mosby, you was right. Where you all running this thing is wrong. Number one, I'm against this school governance policy. We in the community ain't had no time to see this policy. And what you got in this town is you got all these outside groups. They're running the school system. The parents, the teachers, and nobody have nothing to say. That is wrong. You ain't got in Waterbury, Danbury, all them parents up in and we was up at the state the other day, and we gonna be up there again. The state is behind this thing too. This is wrong what you all doing. Number two, and I know I ain't got but 3 minutes, and that's the problem why we can't talk. Number two, I'm against this 9-10 you want to throw out. Number one, that's done for politics. Ain't nothing wrong with that 9-10. They have it all in all other schools. You all just doing this plain politics. And now you're going to catch up with you. Another thing what I want to speak out to Bridge, I ain't let that allude. Because my suit is coming. Don't worry, it's coming, Paul, but it's going to be in court. Bridge, we want some money to fix that school up. There's no need of hauling them kids and spending $11 million a year hauling our special kids all over town. This is crazy. And what you all do, y'all partnership with these outside group, giving them all the money, and they ain't giving nothing to the school system. Them people ain't got no business here. Or some of them get mad with me. They don't have no business. It's in violation of the law. And let me say one thing. I know I got me 3 more times. Hear what it's saying. Let me give them a glass of right quick. I know you're going to set me down. Under your code of conduct, it is saying, I will acknowledge the board represent the entire community and will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest or politic group. I will never use my position of vote for gains of myself and my friends. I will hold everything confidential, disclosure, which you want to keep it confidential. You don't want to put all the kids' records in the street and all your personal business, what the board talked to. That's what you're doing when you get that 9-10. I will insist that all transcripts be open and active to the board. We don't see the orders or nothing. What you all, and I know I got to sit down, but what you all doing is wrong. You're wrong, and you board member I'm holding all of you accountable. And what we gonna do? We're going to take y'all before the Excellence Board, Excellence Committee, and let them look at what y'all doing. It's wrong what you all doing. Thank you very much.
And that is it for public comments this evening.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is Superintendents Report. Over to you, Dr. Adamowski.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have a relatively short report tonight, given the fact that you have an executive session at the end of the meeting. Before I begin, though, I did want to address a couple of the parent concerns. I think all three parents who spoke tonight expressed concern over teachers who may be certified to teach more than one subject, but for the last, how many years, 20 years, may have taught only a single subject and are not prepared to teach more than that. So that is what we are attempting to avoid. Initially there was concern over teaming. We wouldn't do teaming. Well, the schedule that the middle school task force or design committee was looked at the last time is in fact a teaming schedule. It's a modified block schedule, but the modified block enables teachers to teach a single area or to stay in their area of teaching and preparation. So I just wanted to clarify that concern. I think it's very well appreciated by Dr. Connor, by everyone on the committee, including myself, that to simply put a teacher into a situation where they may be certified or at least qualified in the eyes of the state to teach it, they haven't had experience in it, they haven't done it, is not going to be helpful to student achievement. I have indicated on a couple of occasions, as one of our speakers said, that the priority does need to be grade 6, because this is where we have the precipitous drop in achievement between 5th and 6th grade. But we're certainly, any way that the design committee feels fit to pilot this or try it in a school or to look at a different way, presumably a better way of doing it, is going to be designed around keeping teachers in their field of teaching experience. So I just wanted to clarify that. So the rumor that there would not be teams is not founded. The rumor that teachers would be teaching outside of their field is not founded. And I would just ask that everyone just give the design committee a little bit of time to do its work and explore something, because it's difficult to deal with rumors as they generate the minute that anyone raises a proposal or an idea. But that is in fact the purpose of why we're doing this, is to examine new proposals, examine new ideas. So I would just ask for your patience, but I did want to clarify those two areas regarding teaming and teaching within the field of experience. I have, I wanted to review with the board tonight this report that we've received recently from CCER, Connecticut Council for Education Reform. You'll notice the partner on this was Education Resource Strategies. CCER met with Mr. Hamilton and I in September of last year. And we're aware that there were concerns in Norwalk over equity and funding. We were seeking at the time the correct audit of our special education department. They offered to Norwalk and 5 other districts the school system funding analysis, which you have in front of you at this point. Initially, we were very disappointed that this would not be done earlier, that it would take almost a full year to complete. However, having received it now, it's a wonderful opportunity to look at this against some of the assumptions we've made from the data that you've been presented, some of the assumptions that were made in the strategic operating plan based upon that data, and also some of the direction that we've now charted in special education. And I think you'll see, although we did not know what to expect coming out of this analysis, I think you will find that this is reinforcing to a number of the directions that you have set and things that we would build on going into the future. I'm just going to quickly highlight a few of the pages here. You'll notice this is very data rich. The data was derived directly by CCER from state data. So we did not have, we did not play a role in contributing to that. But I think you'll find that it reaches a conclusion very similar to the conclusions reached by our own data department and what Ms. Filardo and Dr. Connor have presented to you in the past. You'll see on page 10, which is called draft 10, the district overview. And by the way, we had about 50 copies of these for the public that are available if anyone would like to follow along, because I won't do a PowerPoint on this one. So anyway, there's the district overview, and you'll see that following that is a fairly detailed analysis of all of our outcomes, not only on the SPAC, but going back to 2008 on the CMT. And you'll notice that this includes special ed performance and ELL performance. I'll call your attention to draft 21. And this is the gap in achievement in math and reading between state performance in Norwalk from elementary to middle school. And I think relevant to some of the discussion that occurred tonight, this presents in a different way the gap in student achievement that occurs or has occurred during the middle grades. You'll see the effect of that on draft page 22, which is the gap at the high school level between Norwalk and the state on SPEC math and SPEC ELA. So really this drop in achievement and the leveling off, students really don't recover from it. And the effect is to have fewer students prepared to do rigorous high school work in high school. Draft 23 shows the effect among our special education students. And again, this is a comparison of our district reference group, that's the DRG, green bar, our school system, and the state. And we know that special ed is a priority, and we know we have to do better, and we know that the future of special ed lies in our capacity to develop specialized instruction. And everything in our work now, according to the correct audit, is oriented around that. Now, I would also call your attention to draft 24, which is the next page. And this is the bright spot, I think, in the student achievement analysis. And that is that among our English language learners, Norwalk is consistently performing above the state achievement rate in math and literacy. And again, you'll see the three bars there. Our district reference group, which is the lowest, the state in blue, which is next, and our ELL students, which is comparatively higher to both. So that's a strength, that's a good thing, and something that we need to preserve and continue to strengthen and maintain because our number of English language learners is growing. So beginning on page 27, draft 27, were in areas of concern identified by district staff. The CCER interviewed groups of teachers, administrators, staff at different levels. And again, some of these I think you will find to be familiar themes that we are in the process of addressing. Funding equity between schools and across student groups, the ability to meet the demands of high-need students, such as the growing EL population, and inconsistent policies regarding special ed student programming. Inconsistent implementation of scientifically based research interventions. That could just as easily say absence of implementation of scientifically research-based interventions. And again, this is an area in which we're growing, getting better, finally have some resources around in the next school year. Too many assessments yielding little results. And this was really the purpose for Dr. Connor's presentation to you of a new assessment plan at the beginning of the year. These interviews, by the way, took place before any of that occurred. Need for the common benchmark assessments, which we will do in the form of the NWEA. System of schools, not a school system, refers to the lack of consistent practices across schools. No position control at the central office level. Now, you'll recall that this is the system software that is used between HR and finance in order to track our number of employees and having a budgeted line for every employee who is employed. This group, similar to CREC, had a very hard time determining exactly how many employees we had, particularly in the paraprofessional area. And again, that will be corrected by design now for the next school year. And then finally, a familiar theme that many of you have been immersed in recently, aging schools and facilities. So you'll see these very common themes. I think that reasonable people who have looked at this, whether internally or externally, come up with pretty much the same conclusions. Call your attention to the next section deals with the equity issue. How much are we spending compared to other districts? We're basically spending about the same as other districts. We're in the middle of the pack, at least in terms of that. And most importantly, spending on instruction. If you would look at draft 34, the determination has been made that Norwalk spends about 64% of its operating dollars on instruction, which is a little more than its peers, which is a good thing because we want to be spending the majority of our resources on instruction, and we need to spend even more. Now, then we have some anomalies, and many of these that you're aware of, we've discussed. That begins on draft 35. Nearly 11% of instructional expenditures goes towards aides compensation, which is more than its peers, and over 47% goes towards teachers' compensation. Now, you will find that on the teacher level, though, our class sizes are comparable to other districts. And so this is simply an issue of having competitive salaries within Fairfield County. The aides issue is much different. It's a question of having a disproportionate number of instructional aides. You'll see in draft 36 the student-teacher ratios and the average teacher and benefit amounts for each of the districts, and you'll note ours at 104,527 on average. On draft 37, the conclusion is that Norwalk has more aides per student than most of its peer districts, while we have the highest average general ed teacher aide compensation. So this is one of the things that is skewing our spending currently, the number of aides and the compensation of aides. And then finally, something that you were told through the CREC audit, confirmed here on draft 38, is that Norwalk spends more of its SPED designated operating budget on aides compared to peer districts. And this is the whole notion of having to develop a continuum of professional services. A continuum of professional services is taught by teachers. And this is a departure from so much of our current practice, which relies on one-on-one assignment of paraprofessionals to students. Next session deals with analysis of spending relative to program. Now again, relative to some of the discussion tonight, if you look at draft 43, this is average weighted per pupil spending by school level and usage on draft 43. And you'll see that our spending is about $13,006 at the elementary level, about $13,006 at the high school level, and at the middle school level it is $15,790. So this is the anomaly as we compare ourselves to the rest of the state and compare ourselves to comparable districts. Those districts have a much higher expenditure at the high school level. The elementary is about where ours is, and the middle is in the middle, but it is clearly not the highest. And so this suggests an anomaly that has skewed resources from other levels to the middle school level. So if you go to page 46, you'll see that some of this is explained, some of the variation in weighted per pupil spending is partly explained by student-teacher ratios, because more teachers per student is associated with increased per pupil spending. And you'll see that we have the lowest ratios, remarkably, at the 4 middle schools, lowest being Rhoton, then Ponus, then West Rocks, and then Nathan Hale. And that is lower than all of our elementary schools and high schools. Again, this is not an analysis that we have ever looked at internally. So it is interesting in that it confirms through a different lens some of the concern we have been dealing with. You'll see the SPED enrollment ratios on page 47, and I would have you go to draft 48. This is student demographics. Norwalk student demographics reveal 2 characteristics: a growing Hispanic population and a district where white students do not comprise a majority of student population in most schools. Now, in the context of the discussion of a school in South Norwalk, there has been concern expressed, both internally and externally, about having a school that is racially balanced. And you'll see the racial balance in all of our schools in this particular chart. And I would hope in any intra-district magnet that we would develop anywhere as a new school, that we would have 25% at least non-minority students. But you'll see we're in a number of situations now where we have far less than that at existing schools. 12% at Brookside, 14 at Cranberry, 12% at Merrimack, 11 at Rowayton, 16 at Jefferson, 17 at Nathan Hale, and 19 at Norwalk High School. But this will, I think, certainly impress upon you the rate of growth of our Hispanic population and how this plays out across different parts of our city. The next slide, draft 49, is new and different relative to the CREC audit, because this was not addressed explicitly in the CREC audit. But based upon this analysis, our SPED enrollment rate is 11.4% as opposed to the 14% that was the topic of other studies. However, when you look at the Hispanic, white, and black participation rates, you will see that this is skewed toward minority students. And this deals with that whole issue of the correct report around the types of evaluations we're doing, the way IEPs are written, quality standards, and so on. That's I think an eye-opening chart that gives us a more sharpened perspective on this. You'll see a summary of findings beginning on page 50, on draft 50, but I would like to call your attention to the three major ones that begin on page 53, under the summary of recommendations. And the first is, Norwalk should examine its investment in teacher aides. The data suggests the district has more aides per student than in comparison districts. And the question is asked, is this investment purposeful? Consider potential cost savings by shifting to alternative special education models that are less reliant on aides. I think we are on that path now as we attempt to build a continuum of professional services and implement position control to better monitor the hiring and placement of aides, as we are about to do. The second major recommendation is on draft 54. The data suggests that Norwalk over-identifies certain student subgroups for special education. And consider implementing the 3-year strategic plan outlined in the 2015 CREC special education audit. I'm grateful to the board that you have appointed the special task force under Dr. Crevecore's leadership to monitor our implementation of this. You know that a good part of it relies on the support of our city through the Special Education Development Fund to achieve some of these objectives, but some have already been achieved and others are in process, and hopefully we will have the support necessary to implement over 3 years all of the 10 priority recommendations of the CREC report. And then finally, the final major recommendation is on page 55, draft 55. Norwalk spends more in instruction at middle schools than in other school levels. And the question is asked, is this investment purposeful? Consider the current middle school model. Lowest student-teacher ratio in the district and lagging academic performance. And this, of course, is the reason why the Middle School Redesign Committee was organized. This is the purpose of this study, is to find a better model, a more efficient model, one that will maximize resources to a greater degree than what we are currently doing, and produce a better result in student achievement for our students. So I will leave you with this. We think that this exercise was helpful. It is always good to have an objective set of eyes from outside the district looking at the same things that we're looking at, and I was pleased to find that in the main, probably 90% of the cases, the same conclusions were reached, perhaps by looking through a slightly different lens. Okay. So I'll see if you have any questions on this, and if not, I'm going to defer to the executive session later this evening.
Okay. Any questions, Dr. Adamowski? Obviously, there's a lot of material for us to work through here, so I would urge board members as you research this that if you do have follow-up questions, please email Dr. Adamowski or call him and follow up. All right, thank you, Dr. Adamowski. All right, next item is section 6, actions. First item is consent calendar, which is 6.2A, B, C1, C2, C3, which is approval of personnel, approval of budget transfers, and approval of 3 listed trips. Is there a motion to approve the calendar? Eric moves. Is there a second? Artie seconds. Any discussion on the consent calendar? All right. Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Consent calendar is adopted. Next item is number 3, approval of proposed meal pricing for fiscal year 16-17. Tom Hamilton, you want to walk us through this one?
Sure. This was taken to the Finance Committee a couple months back, and now we're bringing it to you for approval. The district learned a few months ago that our current meal pricing did not meet the current minimum standards as established by the USDA, which is the funding source for a portion of the food service program that comes from the federal government. We were actually 2 cents below the minimum amount. The amount that was established last year, food service did use the online tool that the USDA makes available to school districts to calculate the amount. Turned out there was an error in the tool that had been posted online for districts to use. So the fact that we were under didn't result in any penalties against us for last year or for this year, but we are required to adjust the meal prices up going forward based on the corrected tool that's available. I think more importantly, though, when we looked at the actual expenses of this program and the revenues of this program, for last fiscal year, food service operated with expenses exceeding revenues by $85,000. And therefore, there was a $85,000 subsidy that the district was required to contribute from our regular operating budget into food service. And that was not a planned subsidy, if you will. That was just the actual results of operation at the end of the year required that subsidy be made. I think we certainly are of the opinion that we want food service to operate on a break-even basis. We don't want to be subsidizing food service operations simply because it basically takes resources away from what could otherwise be supporting the educational programs of the district. So we did look at surrounding communities' charges, and we proposed an increase in charges that would move us into a break-even operation. So the elementary meals are currently $2.40 for lunch, going to proposed to go to $2.65. Middle school is currently $2.75, proposed to go to $3.25. High school is currently $3.25, proposed to go to $3.85. And then adult meals, we're proposing to go from $4 to $4.50. So all told, that would generate, assuming the current number of meals, would generate an additional $116,000, and therefore would put this operation on a break-even basis for next fiscal year.
Okay. Any questions for Shirley?
You said adult meals will go from $4 to $4.50, right?
Yes. We had originally, actually, what we brought to the Finance Committee had the price going from $4 to $4.25. I'd sent out a revised memo to the board that was in your package tonight, indicating that the state recently conducted a triennial administrative review of the school nutrition program, and they have a tool that they provided to us that is used to determine what your adult non-subsidized pricing should be relative to your meal prices for the subsidized meals. And based on that tool, they recommended, oh, I'm sorry, my letter, I'm reading my letter. Okay, so I guess the updated schedule, we didn't put it in here, I apologize for that. The updated schedule should say $4.75
That's what I'm
as the
looking at.
proposed meal price for adults. Originally, we
Yeah, I
had
think
it
you're-
at
That's the
$4.50.
packet we
Probably
have.
most
We have
of it.
475
The fourth-
packet.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's,
Oh, you do have $4.75 in the
Yes.
packet?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay, good, yeah, so it should be $4.75, and
So it is-
that change was a result of the state looking at our meal pricing for adult meals compared to student meals, and indicated that the price should move to that level.
so it's $4.75, not $4.50.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? I thought I would mention briefly, I know Mike Barbas in particular has been talking to you about looking at some options to improve the quality of the food. And I know this isn't part of this proposal here, but can you just give us a quick summary on efforts that we're making to try to work on quality?
Sure, and even though it's not directly related to pricing, it certainly has some bearing, because to the extent that we do want to undertake efforts to improve the quality of the offerings, it's likely that there would be some cost implications associated with that. So bringing in additional revenue to help cover some of those costs would certainly be a component of doing that. We do have a district wellness committee that has had several meetings in the last couple of months, and this is certainly very much on their radar, and they are interested and engaged in with the district in terms of looking at the offerings that we are making available, and looking to see what we can do to improve some of those offerings. So, I mean, there's a number of things that other districts are doing. We want to do some research to sort of better understand what best practices are in in this area, but we know that there's a number of things that school districts are doing in terms of making attractive salad bar options available, providing fresher locally sourced foods and so forth. So those are the types of things we would be looking to do, and again, to try to make the offerings more appealing, while also still meeting the requirements that the federal government puts in place in terms of having to have meals that are nutritionally balanced and have a certain number of ounces of vegetables and fruits and so forth. So our current offerings do meet all of the federal requirements, but certainly there's room for improvement. So it's, I think the process we're going to do is use the resources we have on the Wellness Committee to help identify kind of best practices, work with our management company over the course of the next school year to implement as many of those changes as we can within the budget that's available to us. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Chairman, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just might follow up. Thank you, Tom, for all that, and Tom's been really helpful. And I have been in touch with a couple people on the Wellness Committee, and this isn't exactly my, flag to bear, but I know there are a lot of parents that have concerns on this front, and that a lot of food, that we offer is not liked by the kids, and that I think I was at a conference, and I'll mention it in my comments at the end of this meeting, but I was surprised at how many other options are out there, and so I think looking at best practices is a great idea, and I'm talking to Tom, I think we have some options going forwards that we should consider and we'll look at, and I think, we'll make a lot of moms happy by just even making that effort. And I've got to think we could find some solutions and some options and really improve our product without that much money. And one of the companies I met at this conference I was at last week, they were offering totally healthy, natural, non-processed foods at the USDA prices. So maybe budgetarily it wouldn't be as painful as we think. But,
yeah, and one of the things that we can look at is the food waste, and the way that we essentially provide each student with the required amount of fruits and vegetables and so on their plate. Everyone more or less gets the same thing, but there are different, the federal government allows you, the USDA allows you to set up a system where the student can be provided choices, so that if you have to provide, and I'm trying to remember some of the details, but I think you have to provide, whatever it is, 2 servings of 5 ounces each or something of a fruit, we give them 2 servings, 10 ounces goes on the plate. But you can set it up so the student can choose, and as long as they have the choice, you don't have to necessarily put it on the plate. You have to get one of them on the plate for it to be a eligible meal for reimbursement. But if you are not providing the student the choice to elect what they want and to even take more if they want more, then you have to give them the full 10 ounces. But if you provide them the choice, and they decide to only take one, that still is an eligible meal. So that may be a way to look at sort of reducing some of the food that ends up just getting thrown out, and you kind of know it's going to get thrown out, but because of our process, we're always putting the exact same amount on each plate. So it's sort of moving more to the notion that giving the students, a little more choice of what they're going to take, and then so you may have 3 or 4 different fruits that you're offering and encouraging the students to take 2, but if they decide they only want to take 1, that still becomes an eligible meal for reimbursement.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tom. Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the schedule. Eric moves. Is there a second? Mike seconds. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the proposed meal pricing for 16-17, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of amendment to policy 9010, which was discussed at the last meeting. I'll point out that Ms. Keys is out because of a personal reason, so she's not available to discuss the policies, although she did ask me to read a statement regarding the next policy, which I will do. Is there a motion to approve the proposed amendment of section 9010? Brian moves, Eric seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Shirley.
Policy changes and decisions should not be based on personal agendas, influence, or catering to special interests in political groups, or inflamed by public controversy because we do not get our way or use as a tool for personal interests or gains. I will be voting no tonight, which is why I am asking again for the board to undergo training and understandings, bylaws, processes, procedures, and policies that should be aligned with the Connecticut state statute and consistent with our local school boards, as well as training in the area of diversity, culture, and inclusiveness training, and community public relations outreach, and the training should be mandatory.
All right. Any other discussion? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I stated at our last meeting when we discussed the policy, I will be voting in favor of the change. And my personal reason for voting is much to the chagrin of maybe some other board members, but it is not on personal vendettas, it is not on politics. It is specifically on the fact that the language that we are removing is one sentence, not changing any other bit of the policy, a sentence that does not exist in any other policy in this state. I've had word from Attorney Mooney on this. I have looked into it myself. The language of the policy is not changing. The reason I am voting yes for this change is because that one sentence drove a lot of ire, confusion, and frustration around a topic that was already quite divisive. I feel removing this language will clarify the policy and what it actually is supposed to stand for, and hopefully avoid a situation that we have gone through in the future. As Ms. Moby stated in our last meeting, the FOIC Commission did not solely justify their basis of ruling in favor of her in that policy language. So regardless of whether it was changed or not, that wouldn't have anything to do with it. Again, my opinion on voting for this policy is the fact that it is going to remove language that has caused a great deal of unrest in this city. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the resolution and the amendment, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 1. Abstention? 1. All right, that's 5 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention. Motion passes and the policy is adopted. All right. Next is approval of School Governance Council Policy 1211. Can I have a motion to approve this policy, and then I'll read the statement?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Eric moves. Is there a second? Mike seconds. Okay, so we've moved for approval of School Governance Council Policy 1211. This is a statement that Ms. Keys emailed me and asked me to read because she was unable to make the meeting tonight. Unfortunately, due to medical treatment, I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting. As policy chair, I support moving forward with SGC Policy 1211. During our lengthy and passionate discussion at our last BOE meeting, I went over in detail this policy. We first started this process during the summer at our Board of Education retreat. At the policy committee, we then dove in head first and read, reread, revised, changed, tweaked, and reviewed. I feel we are now ready to move Policy 1211 through. What is clear to me is that forming SGCs in all of our 19 schools is a way of giving autonomy to parents and staff in a clear and unwavering voice. As a cohesive decision-making body, there will be shared responsibility within their own schools. Once we move this forward, the administration can start the necessary professional development, training, and guidance that our schools will need to be ready, prepared, and successful. That's the statement from Policy Chair Keyes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Simmons.
I have a question on the election in term of members. It says members of the council shall be elected as follows. Parents' representatives shall be elected from parents or legal guardians of children enrolled in a school. And it says the process of parent election shall be developed by the principal in collaboration. And there's some more verbiage there. The other three points do not say that the principal will come up with the process for election. Here's my feeling on this one line item, is that the principal can come up with, any principal can come up with any kind of an election process, meaning they can pick parents that they want on their council and kind of skew the purpose of the whole governance council. Instead of making an open, fair election that any parent could run.
Okay.
If you can speak to that at all, do you understand what I'm saying?
I think I hear what you're saying. What I would say, and this isn't going to reassure you necessarily, but in the two schools that I'm involved in that have school governance councils that were mandated by the state, the parents really weren't connected at all to the principal. I mean, I'm not sure quite where the names came from, but it was a really diverse group of people, and they were not the kind of rah-rah, PTA people. They were really from different walks of the school. How that came about, I actually can't tell you. So I don't know, but it has, I would just say practically, it has worked in a way you'd be comfortable with.
And let me address that also. The original language of this, and this policy is a compendium of some other policies that have been adopted around the state. And the original language, which apparently is sort of from like a state recommended form, says this, that you should determine the local election process. When we were reviewing this, we added the phrase at the very end, subject to the approval of the superintendent of schools. That language is inserted specifically to prevent some kind of an abuse from going on in the selection of an election methodology. So that if you had a school where clearly the methodology was set up so, I don't know, only members of the PTO can vote or something exclusive like that, it would never get the approval of the superintendent. And so we inserted that to sort of follow the state model, but put a check and balance on it to prevent abuse. And in the packet, by the way, I included the underlying state statute, and also in particular the State Department of Education guidance for membership and election procedures. This is the document which Dr. Adamowski will be looking at to see how these systems are being set up. And, all of them presumably are going to have at least these base requirements, that you have some kind of a committee formed. It could be PTO or something else. It would be an election committee with representatives of existing groups, such as the teachers union, PTO, et cetera. But then they're fairly specific about what they want to see in terms of procedures. And they want call for nominations to be sent to all parents, guardians to nominate themselves or others for available positions. Every effort should be made to provide nomination and election materials to parents in a language they understand. Ballots to be distributed to each household. Voting procedures that will maximize participation should be determined by the election committee, so they allow some flexibility, But for example, parents and teachers should be given sufficient time and multiple opportunities to cast a ballot through dropping it off at the school office or another community location outside of school hours to accommodate work schedules, through U.S. mail, et cetera. And there's, descriptions here about how do you get on the ballot, how are ballots distributed. This is the document that Dr. Adamowski is going to be looking at these individual school election procedures. And if he determines that somebody's trying to game the system, he can reject what's been proposed. So I think that check and balance should adequately deal with that issue.
So, I think one of the questions here and issues, and this is a very legitimate topic, is, does equality in the process produce equality of result? And we don't know that, actually, until we get some experience at this. The PTOC, I'm scheduled to meet with them in May, and they want to discuss their role, the role of the PTOs in this election committee. And having, being involved in the design of what the elections would look like relative to these different regulations. And, there's a wide range of concerns and fears here. One is around the process, but another is around, will we get enough people so that we can actually have an election or a meaningful election where there's a choice of parents. So, I don't know of any other way for us to get good at this other than to do it and try it and get experience at it and get better at it. You will have, according to policy, an annual meeting with the co-chairs of the school governance councils. This is certainly an issue to explore with them as well, by asking the question, do you feel you have a representative group of parents and teachers on your council? But we'll do our best to ensure that these guidelines are followed and, parents who are on the council are in fact elected, and people do have a chance to step up and be on the ballot if they want to.
I will tell you that in my own experience, when we had that school council at Marvin School in the 90s, when we set up the accelerated school, I know one concern that some people have made is, well, is the local PTO just going to take over and run this thing? And I can tell you that, at least in my experience at Marvin, the PTO and the school council remain completely separate. And one of the key differences that, the PTO tends to be elected by whoever shows up at the PTO meetings, which may be 20 people. Whereas the school council was elected through a very broad-based thing where there were multiple communications sent home with the kids, where anybody who wanted to put their name up could be nominated, and where all the parents were voting by ballot with, as they suggested here, several different ways that you could get a ballot in. And you didn't have to come in at the same time. There's a couple of days that the ballots could come in. And we found, at least at Marvin, that there was very broad-based participation. Much larger, much broader group of people participated in those elections than the much smaller group that tended to run the PTO. And, I guess there's two things. One is that we did build in a check and balance by having the superintendent have to approve any election method. And like a lot of other things that have been done as this policy has been drafted and redrafted as we've thought of different things, is that first there are checks and balances built into it that weren't there in the first draft. But secondly, to echo Dr. Adamowski, to some extent we have to put this thing into effect and see how it works. Sometimes a problem may develop that we didn't anticipate. And since we're going to be requiring reports from the school governance councils, we're going to have an annual meeting with the school governance council leadership. I think we will get feedback if problems like that develop. And if necessary, we can always amend the policy. So I was thinking about this last night that, this is a lot of work went into putting this thing together. And, but we have to implement it, see how it works, and maybe tweak it. And what you don't want to do is to fall into the mistake of the old line about, allowing the perfect to become the enemy of the good. In other words, sometimes people are reluctant to approve something because they don't think you've achieved perfection. So you don't adopt it, but then you don't even achieve good, okay? Right now, we don't have anything like this to allow parents and teachers to actively participate in the administration of their schools. This will create that opportunity for people to do it, and even if it's imperfect, I think an imperfect opportunity for people to really get invested in the management of their local schools is better than no opportunity. So, just my general thoughts. Yes?
Sorry, I did read the state statute and compared the two. The state statute creates more of an advisory council. This is advisory plus.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's my fear. That's why I'm a little hesitant on this portion of it, because they have a little bit more power. It's not just, here's my opinion. So my proposal is, and I know a lot of work behind this. I wasn't on the policy committee, and my first look at it was really a couple weeks ago. But my proposal would be that why don't the board come up with the election process, make it fair across the board, and then go ahead with it.
Eric?
Artie, I actually really appreciate your comments that you've made tonight. Some of them are very similar to what I've come across. Specifically on this, as being somebody on the policy committee, the concern I have with us mandating an election process, I know for myself, I don't know the workings of each and every individual school. And I think that's why this policy does give it to the principals to create their process that's going to work best for their schools. I also agree with Chairman Lyons and Dr. Adamowski's points of getting this into motion and having the freedom to be able to change it and being able to revisit and tweak things as comes around. I do have a great deal of faith in our principals and administrators to be able to create a fair, just system in this election. And I also wonder if we do take on creating the election, then is that putting us as the board responsible for following up with the results, and what is that going to look like, and how do we monitor that? Those were some things that I came across, and the amount of almost micromanagement. It's something that I didn't think was necessarily in our purview as board members, but that was my opinion. So,
any other comments? Ms. Mosby?
School governance councils can provide an opportunity for schools to engage with families and community members in a partnership with the councils are intended to represent the diverse interests of the family, teachers, students, and community members. To that end, every effort should be made to engage broad participation in a fair and open council election process. Although there have been discussions over the last few months, there are still concerns within the community and myself that the policy needs more to assure diversity on the council. Section 5, selection of term and members, process of parents' election shall be developed by the principal in collaboration with the schools, parents, teacher organization, or comparable parents organization, subject to approval of the superintendent of the school. The council shall represent the diverse interests of the families and staff that make up the local school community, and every effort, therefore, shall be made to engage broad participation in the council election process. Our PTO and PTOCs lack diversity and does not represent the makeup of our community. How can we ensure that equal and fair representation for all who wants to be a part of the council will take place? Since this is a new policy, I was hoping to see something stronger to address this in the policy. I will not be voting no on this because I think it's something that we need to explore, but I cannot vote yes, knowing that more can be done. Therefore, I will be abstaining on this vote tonight.
Eric? Ms. Mosby, I appreciate your comments on this tonight. Since you were not able to join us at the policy committee meetings, what do you propose as far as, making better adjustments to more inclusivity with policy for the minority communities?
Mr. Anderson, I'm not going to get into all this back and forth with this. And as far as my attendance at the policy meeting, I've already stated the fact that those meeting times had changed. There was a lot of cancellation of those policy meetings, and the time changed, even posted out there for the public. It was posted as 12 o'clock during the day. who can get there at 12 o'clock during the day. But I'm not going to make this about that today because I want to move this meeting forward. But before you sit there and say that you did not get to all these policy meetings, get all the facts before you make a statement like that.
Ms. Mosby, I think you're focusing on one piece of my comment, and I was simply trying to ask you, what do you propose we do to amend this policy in a better way?
There's a lot. There was a few people at the policy meeting when I was there, and they were concerned. And if you could have reached out more to those people and took some time, then we probably could have put something in this policy. But right now, from what I'm hearing today, if I give you a suggestion tonight, will it be put in there? I doubt it. So why should we sit here and try to go into it at this point?
Mr. Chair, if I can make one comment. I will state that the overall purpose of this policy is to empower parents. It's to empower our schools, to get them more involved, to get them more engaged. And as we've stated already, it's an imperfect policy. Most of the policies that we put forward need to go out there and do need to get some legs to figure out what still needs to be amended. To Ms. Mosby's point, we may run into a situation where something along those lines needs to be addressed. But for right now, the overall purpose that I see in this policy, why I am supporting it, is to give a greater empowerment to parents, much like Mr. Lyons had spoke about in the School Governance Council at Marvin. I want to see this move forward so we can start to see that empowerment moving forward. I also hope to see most of us on this board working with our districts to help empower those parents so we can have great representation on these school governance councils. Mr. Lyons.
I'm sorry, Sherelle and then Brian.
Just a quick question to Mr. Anderson's point. In one instance, if there's a school in need of improvement, all power is revoked from the parents, I believe.
Some is
Can you explain
subject
that
to
a
being
little bit
revoked.
more to me, please?
Sure. If you, let's see.
I guess
Okay.
I'm wondering.
This is for intervention schools.
Correct.
And it's in subsection 6F.
F.
It defines intervention school means a Norwalk school, which is one of the lowest performing schools in the district as measured by state and internal data and by school quality reviews, and is designated as an intervention school by the superintendent. It goes on to say that consistent with the Board of Education's adopted theory of action, individual schools are presumed to act autonomously. Notwithstanding the foregoing, schools that are designated as intervention schools by the superintendent shall be subject to a reduction in their autonomy and to intervention and support from the NPS administration. As to any school designated as an intervention school, the superintendent may intervene and remove from the council by written notice its authority under any or all of sections 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, and 13 of section C. So an intervention school might only lose one out of that whole list of authorities, or it might lose a couple, depending on how badly the school was performing, if it needed to be intervened in by the central administration.
So if I could drill down to a specific instance, as you
Sorry,
know,
I'm talking like a lawyer.
as you know, this is one of the issues in our, or it's the theory of action in our strategic operating plan that we're going to give greater autonomy to those schools that are doing well, who are, improving or achieving at a higher level, and then we're going to intervene in the lowest performing schools. This is based upon our data that suggests that almost half of the lowest performing students in our school district attend 4 or 5 schools, of our 19 schools. So let's assume that next year, and by the way, I would be coming to you with these recommendations in June of each year for the following year. So let's assume at your board meeting this June that the first year we would recommend intervention in one school, which was the lowest performing school on the basis of all of our data, including a school review that I think you're aware Public Square is performing in 5 of our schools. So in that case, I don't think we would organize a council next year. And one of the key factors here is because, we're anticipating 4 principal vacancies. So if any of those were schools that had a principal vacancy next year. We would be appointing the principal. I would be appointing the principal if it were an intervention school, as opposed to organizing a school governance council, having the school governance council respond to candidates that we're sending and picking the best fit. The whole purpose of this is that in order to implement intervention and support is the other side of it, we have to be able to have someone there that the district can work with to redesign the school so that it gets a much higher level of achievement than what it has. You'll notice in the strategic operating plan that time is a variable relative to this as well, so it's anticipated that this type of school would have more instructional time, would be reworking a lot of its processes, but again, that is not something that we can take for discussion to a school governance council. Those are things that have to be done in fairly short order during the year of intervention and design.
But I guess my thought is if we're trying to give more power or empowering the parents, why not have them involved in the process as a learning tool? That way, going forward, they would know how to keep the school on track. Or put another way, if you could tell me an instance of where you might remove someone from the council, maybe that would help me.
Well, you wouldn't remove
someone,
anybody
no.
from the council. The council would continue to exist.
Okay.
It's that you're not obliterating the council. You're just saying, all right, you have this list of 13 things that we've assigned to you. We're going to reduce that by 5 to 8 things that are still assigned to you. If an intervention school was not going to, make a final choice on the superintendent, that doesn't mean that the council couldn't be involved in an advisory capacity on that. So an intervention school doesn't lose its council. It just loses some of the authority for the council, and with the council continuing to exist and interacting with the superintendent, I think that is the opportunity for a learning opportunity. Because you don't want them to learn by really badly screwing up.
No, I get that. So maybe let me put it another way. If we were to reduce their powers, what instances, how would that occur?
The superintendent would issue a written.
Yeah, so
I'm
there's
just
a,
looking for an instance. I know what will happen, I need to have.
I mean, what would get you into intervention status? Is that what you mean?
No, I understand that.
what would be reduced?
Thank you.
Yeah, so there are about 12 autonomies listed in the policy. I think is it 12? Mm-hmm. And I would say that those that dealt with direction of the school, programs, time, major changes in the school program that the council was supposed to concur with the principal on, those are probably the areas that would be removed.
Those are the 4 primary ones
So
right there.
approval of the resource allocation plan, because we would need to work that around, the changes. We mentioned the vacancy in the principalship, if there was one. Probably, maybe the selection process for teachers and other certified staff, although we could probably have some involvement there. Advice and assistance regarding programmatic and operational changes which foster the school's improvement goals. That would be a big one.
There's room for the chance that some of those might not, like they might be able to have input in some of those areas?
Yes, could certainly be discussion of that. Now, there's a whole bunch of other ones, that deal with vision, the analysis of data, improvement plan, parental choice, the school compact, policy for parent involvement, advice and assistance, relative to an annual survey of parents, informing the board relative to the school's facility needs, selection of the school's before and after school program, and school uniforms, where they might, continue to exert those authorities. We have to have the ability, though, in intervention and support system, to change the design of the school fairly rapidly in order to improve student achievement.
I support the policy in its initial pass. Good job by the policy committee. I don't believe in meddling in the affairs of the election process. If the goal itself is to achieve autonomy, then doing that right up front kind of is counter to that whole effort. So I'm pleased with the safety valves in place, and I feel reasonably assured that if things go haywire at a certain school, we can pull the plug on it and take a new direction. So I will be voting yes. Thank you.
Ms. Mosby?
I would like to make a motion to table this until our next meeting so that we can explore some of the concerns that came up today.
All right, is there a second to the motion? All right, if there's no second, then the motion is not properly
There's a
before the
second.
board.
Okay.
Okay, motion is second. Motion to table is not debatable. We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of tabling, please indicate. One.
I'm okay either way,
All opposed?
but if she wants to have discussion.
Okay, motion to table fails. Is there further discussion? It occurred to me in listening to the comments by Mr. Kasimis and Ms. Mosby that one thing we could do to provide a little bit of guidance on the on the election process is that since our anticipation is that the superintendent is going to be guided by this Guidance for School Governance Council's election process, that we could add language in here, making that an explicit part of the regulation. So we could say something like, I was just writing this down, if you look at that sentence, parents shall be elected, blah, 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 blah. It says parent-teacher organization or comparable parent organization. We could add, based generally on the guidance for school councils on membership and election procedures published by the CSDE, which is the State Department of Education, in August 2013.
I'm good with that.
Mr. Chair, may I withdraw my motion earlier made for the policy as it was?
Okay, all right.
And I'd like to make a motion to propose the policy as amended as you just suggested, with
Okay.
including the new language that you have just described.
All right, is there a second to that?
second that.
Already seconds?
Go with that.
I think that language would, again, it says, I've written it to say based generally, so it's not like a rock hard, you have to do every little thing. But obviously, a lot of thought went into the process of creating the state document to make sure that the elections were fair and broad-based. So I think if we do that, it would address that issue.
And I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Chair. When you sent the packet out and I read the state guidelines, I very much liked what they gave as a structure. So being able to go back to those with our principals, to even give those to them as the basis guideline of what they should be doing, I think is awesome.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
All right. All right, any other discussion? All right, I just want to, briefly state, first, thanks to the policy committee. I know you guys, and Heidi, if you're out there watching us on the live stream, I want to thank everybody in the policy committee. I know you spent months working on this. We first discussed it back at our November retreat. This is a central key component of the whole theory of action that we're developing for the schools. It is a real opportunity, and I've seen how it can work and how positive it can be at a school in my own experience at Marvin if you do it right. Really dramatic opportunity for parents and teachers to join with the principal and get strongly involved in the management of their schools. And I know, it's sort of basic human nature that if you think you're just an advisory body and you can say what you want, nobody has to listen to you, you don't generate a lot of interest for that. If you think what you say and how you vote actually is going to have a real impact on your school, that generates a lot of interest. I mean, I've said this to people that, a typical PTO meeting, realistically, you get maybe 20 people, 30 people show up. At Marvin School in the 90s, when we would have our school as a whole meetings, and this policy requires each school governance council to have at least one of those meetings with the entire school population every year, we would get 200 parents filling the gymnasium at Marvin School, meeting after meeting, and with people brainstorming, and, you know, we had the boards up with yellow stickies and people coming up with ideas to make the school. And it was really remarkable to see that kind of parental involvement once they thought it made a difference. So I'm really hopeful that this is going to be a great improvement for our school system. All right, anything else? All right, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the amended version as moved by Mr. Anderson, please indicate. All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, one abstention. Motion carries, and the policy as amended is adopted. And the Secretary, I will send you a clean version of that with the additional language that was added. All righty then. Next is discussion of attendance policy 5113. Normally, I would ask our policy chair to lead this discussion.
I think Dr. Connor could do that.
Dr. Connor, if you could fill in ably, that would be appreciated.
Good evening, Board of Education. And the policy that we were looking to change was regarding the H policy that's currently in place at the high schools. As you know, both Brian McMahon as well as Norwalk High School is transitioning to a 90-minute instructional block. So the policy that's currently in place does not align with current state best practices as well as national best practices. And based on the research that was conducted by Adam Reynolds as well as Scott Horwitz from Brian McMahon and Norwalk High School, specifically stated that students were taking courses just to fulfill credits. They weren't taking it for a meaningful and relevant experience. So they made the policy change, or the recommendation for a policy change. The policy was drafted in 1985. It was last revisited in 2015 with very minor modifications with it. So I think that is in alignment to best practices, national best practices and state best practices. They presented a pretty good recommendation in regards to what those changes will look like, and also the attendance in regards to cuts, in regards to progressive approaches in regards to keeping students involved in their coursework, and then also this advisory council that they presented, or not advisory council, but more on the lines of advisory committee, that if they lose credit, they would have to present their case to multiple stakeholders that are in the school, as well as this was a topic of discussion in regards to adding students on the actual committee for recovery of credits. So that was the policy discussion that took place. It was first approached at the curriculum committee meeting, and then already presented it to where we would bring it to the policy committee. And that's where we presented it to the policy committee. Now it's here.
Okay. Artie, I know that you took this up at curriculum.
We took it up at
before you went
curriculum
to policy,
first,
right?
yeah, because it was a policy change.
Mhm.
We thought that it also should also go through the policy committee. We approved it unanimously as well, and one of the things that really stood out for us is because the H policy was punishing kids academically, and we wanted to move away from that. And so that's one of the main reasons also that we changed it. When we went to policy, because it's number 9,
Right.
what is it, 910?
It's got to go through the book.
Yeah, got to go through the book.
So how, just, you know, I mean, I can see the, you know, the markups and everything, but, you know, what do you feel are, you know, substantively, not the technicalities here, but the substantive improvement that we're making with this policy change?
In regards to academic coursework, in regards to credits, major colleges as well as competitive colleges had a very hard time articulating what the transcript of a student from Norwalk presented because of the 0.25, 0.35 credits that were given to students. There was a very hard articulation in regards to that. And then also, if you have 1 credit and you lose credit, let's say for 3 or 4 weeks, you lose a certain percentage of it. So when your senior year, Adam as well as Scott presented that you see fairly decent students going up to their school counselors and asking, am I H'ing? How many credits do I need? What courses could I take to be able to ensure that I'll graduate. So this is a fundamental change in regards to students being able to apply for competitive colleges, and colleges not having a very difficult time interpreting what that transcript is. And then also, it's all or nothing. If you meet the specific attendance requirements for that specific course, you'll be able to get full credit. And the policy change within regards to absences, unexcused absences, as well as tardies. If you lose it, you lose all credit. So it's an all or nothing policy.
Okay. And this changes that to make it more flexible and more sort of a proportional?
Yes.
Good. Any questions on this?
Yeah, where were you 30 years ago?
You would have gotten into Harvard if you'd.
Well, I started right when this policy started, and that was tough. I mean, you wake up late 2 times in a quarter, and you're all of a sudden you're one absence away from having to go to summer school. I mean, that's tough when you're 15.
Pretty draconian.
Yeah.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to say when it was presented to the policy committee, one of the things that stood out for me, well, 2 actually, were the council, the advisory council that you mentioned that could potentially reinstate the credits if they were taken away. The fact that that also has the option of including a student member was something very progressive that I appreciated very much and like to see the initiative moving forward in that direction. The other piece was what you just spoke about briefly, was that there were a number of students that were then taking these elective courses just to fill a credit, but it wasn't necessarily something that spoke to them. Creative writing, there were Shakespeare courses, different types of specific science classes that I remember having as an opportunity to take when I was at high school. Knowing that those will start to be able to fulfill their true need and true desire for those students is something that really was making me very happy in this shift in policy, to give a better direction on how kids are credited and ultimately expanding their experience and what they'll be experiencing in these classes. Because I took creative writing and I loved it. I was very fortunate to have a class of people that by and large were there because they wanted to be there. But I did have fellow classmates that were in classes where situations arose that people were having to make up credits. And it was no fault of that student for being in a class that they didn't want to be in, but it was the way the system worked. So knowing that we're changing that is a very, very good thing for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so any other questions?
Yeah, I would just point out, I know this is just a discussion.
Yeah.
Under the denial of credit paragraph, I think it's just a little disjointed from what we're trying to achieve. It does say that once you total 10, you get denial of credit, but right above it, it says once you clock over 10, it's denial of credit. So that's a slight distinction.
So should that be exceed?
Yeah.
Exceed.
It says totaling, and I think it should say
Exceeding 10,
exceed.
so
Exceed.
okay.
Yeah, for clarification,
We'll make sure that that's corrected. Good catch. See these left hemisphere guys, they get those things up. All right. Okay, good. This will be on the next agenda under our bylaws. We consider it one meeting and then vote on another, but this will be on the next agenda for adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. All right. Next item is March 2016 monthly financial report. Mr. Hamilton, back to you.
Okay, giving you the summary report as well as the detailed report through the end of March. We're 75% of the way through the fiscal year, or 70% of the way through the school year, and in total, we've expended 65.57% of our budget. So, sort of top-level review indicates that we're tracking where we would expect to be tracking on the budget overall. Importantly, wages are tracking pretty well at this point, so we are expecting some turnback in some of the wage accounts, which we will be able to use to cover expected shortfalls in some other areas. The one exception to that, and you approved some transfers earlier tonight, in the area of substitutes, you'll see that all of our substitute accounts are running higher than would be expected at this time during the year. So that's something that I do think we want to look into as we kind of take stock of where the budget is to understand what's driving that. We know from talking with the HR department that we've had what they term to be an unusually large number of maternity leaves, so that would certainly account for some of it, but we also want to look to make sure that when we're hiring substitutes, we're in fact hiring them for actual vacancies and not hiring substitutes as a backdoor way to bring additional staff into schools. So that's something I'll be looking at to make sure we have a good handle on. But we do certainly have the money within the budget to cover those accounts. The other areas, again, we're monitoring special education, and again, we're still expecting to run substantially over the original budget in special education. The number I had last given you was above 3 million. Our latest projection has it coming down a little bit. So my latest projection has it down at about 2.8 million over budget, but still a pretty substantial overrun there. There was a transfer on your agenda tonight that you approved, a substantial transfer. So we're starting to true
Transfer
up
the
those
funds over
accounts
to
at that
Code.
point. At this point, obviously, we haven't transferred the full amount that we think we're going to need because we want to get closer to the end of the year to identify where within our budget we've got smaller amounts of money that we can transfer to cover those shortfalls. Other areas that we're monitoring, and again, you approved some transfers tonight into the electricity account, which is one that we ran over on last year and have been projecting we were going to run over on this year. And we transferred, or you transferred funds. We were fortunate that we, as you know, had a pretty mild winter. We're now sort of more or less coming to the end of the heating season, and so we've had some budget turnback in both natural gas and heating oil that's available to cover shortfalls in electricity. In other facility areas, I think we're in okay shape. We've got a few accounts that are going to need some transfers, but we have some areas within facilities we think that we can cover those shortfalls. So all things considered, we're on track to end the fiscal year where we expected to be able to end it. So.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Just a comment, it's not on the report, it's the report itself. It keeps coming in sideways, and I've asked for it before, if they can get it, they scan it
The other way.
Well,
the other way.
yeah, it can be rotated.
No, it
can't.
Can't be rotated?
When you rotate it, it rotates with you and still.
You mean like this? No.
You have to
And
hold it
as
at
a
a
PDF.
45
It's a
degree
PDF.
angle, on two axes.
It's
So this-
embedded in the rest of the
Stand on your
document, and
left
we
foot.
put in Adobe, and it doesn't work.
Okay, let me
Tom, I think this
make
is-
another note on that.
I think this is an issue for Maura.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
I've
see if
asked
we
for
can
it
get
before,
that
but I'm trying to
squared
do
away.
that.
We should be able to take care of that.
You have to do this.
It would be nice to be able to read it
Yeah,
without
to read it.
getting a crick in your neck.
Okay, we'll make note of that.
But thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks, Tom. All right, next item is committee representative reports. Let's see, why don't we start over here this time? Eric, any reports from liaisons or anything like that?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right. Mr. Kasimis,
Yes,
from
thank
your
you.
various chairs and various
I have
other hats.
several reports. First, let me talk curriculum real quick. We had a meeting tonight right before this. Dr. Connor discussed the rigorous curriculum design, and the curriculum committee did approve it unanimously. We're going to forward it over to the board for discussion at the next time.
Okay.
Also, we had a presentation, a CPUP presentation. It talks about next generation science. Very good. Really looking forward to that. Also, we're probably looking for $237,000 in capital requests for some books for social studies. But I believe the money's there, Mr. Hamilton, correct? Yes. Just say yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Also, we also athletics now. We had a meeting the other day. Come to find out, we have a lot more athletes that are participating, which is great. At Brian McMahon, there were 700 students participating in athletics year-round. Wow. Norwalk High is 900.
Wow.
Now, 4 years ago when I took over.
That's over half the student body.
Yeah, those numbers have almost doubled. which is really great. That means
Yeah.
our kids are getting involved, and all the data proves when kids are involved in extracurricular activities, they learn better, and they excel. So really thrilled about that. We had, I think there were a few kids in the paper yesterday who were all going D2, I think D2 or D3, I think we playing sports. We had four or five kids from Brian McMahon that are going D1 scholarship, and I think 9 from Norwalk High that are D1 scholarshiped. So they get money for sports, so they're going to college for that. One of the things that we're going to start looking at is how to get our kids more exposure to that scholarship money. For the D1 and D2, D3, there is no money for sports. So we're going to start looking at that probably over the summer, and we'll come up with a plan. Let's see, what else did we do? Security's been great. I know we had that one issue a couple months ago with basketball, but security's been doing great. Other than that, that's it for athletics, and that's all I have right now.
That's a great report on athletics. That's amazing.
Doing well, thanks.
Really remarkable.
Yeah.
Let's see, Mr. Barbas, what's going on over at facilities?
On facilities, things have been worked on a little bit behind the scenes, but we did have all of our meetings with the Common Council and the mayor. We kind of took a little bit of a break as the operating budget and the capital budget got through. It looks like now we do have $2.5 million from the city in the coming year's fiscal year in the capital budget for planning purposes. And, we're now looking at options. I think the Facilities Committee will be meeting shortly. We're doing a little bit of legal work on one property to see what our options are. And once we get that legal work back, then I think the Facilities Committee can review the options and make a recommendation to the full board.
Okay. All right, on negotiations of personnel, we have several contracts that will come up this year, and we're sort of in preliminary stages with some of them. We have formally started the negotiations with the Custodians Union, and the first official meeting with them will be on Monday. That meeting is typically just an organizational meeting where you agree on rules and schedule meetings and stuff, so we'll be moving into that negotiation. I wanted also to mention, as board chair here, that earlier today, I emailed a package to the Board of Estimate Taxation, which was also copied to all the board members and the members of the Common Council, regarding our $2.3 million request to the city for the special fund, developmental fund for special education. It's a 32-page package, so there's plenty of reading material to keep them all busy. It follows up on the board's adoption of the resolution at the last meeting to submit this package to the Board of Estimate. We've done quite a lot of work on this, and the package includes the original request for funding that was submitted by Dr. Adamowski, the board approval, a legal opinion from Shipman and Goodwin on best ways of structuring the fund, a draft memorandum of agreement among the Board of Education, the Common Council, and the Board of Estimate on how the fund would be run. We also provided the city with a 3-year expenditure plan showing how we would spend the full $3.6 million over the 3 years, a city fund balance analysis, and also an analysis just prepared by Mr. Hamilton showing expected cost savings in future years after we have implemented the correct reforms. So we have submitted that formally. It was due by this Friday. We submitted it today. So we should be on the agenda for the Board of Estimate Taxation meeting at the beginning of May. The process, obviously, the Board of Estimate has to approve the special appropriation, also has to go to the Common Council for approval. Undoubtedly, there's going to be some negotiation of the terms of the memorandum of understanding. But our hope would be that the city could appropriate half of the $2.3 million that we're requesting from the city before June 30th. The other half by August. By splitting it into 2 fiscal years, we pretty much eliminate any worries that the city had about the MBR, which is the minimum budgetary requirement imposed by the state. By reducing the size per year, our regular budget only has to go up by $1.15 million in the next fiscal year after this to avoid any MBR problems, and that would be a 0.6% increase, which is highly unlikely. So we've structured it in a way to be minimally impactful on the city, while providing us the funds that we need to fully implement the CREC report. So this has gone to the Board of Estimate, and that'll start that process. Finance Chair.
Thanks, Mike. The Finance Committee is going to cancel next week's regular meeting due to some conflicts in schedules. As well, we're anticipating having to be flexible to meet on an ad hoc basis depending on what the state legislature decides to do with its funding of local budgets. So, one month we're in the black, the next month the next week they're cutting, and they seem kind of all over the place. So we're just being mindful of what's going on in Hartford, so we can convene, and if we unfortunately need to, and make some tough decisions. Hopefully that won't come to pass, but we're anticipating that in the next month. So we'll be foregoing next week's meeting and keeping our ears peeled to the ground.
Keeping the powder dry.
And that's it, thanks.
All right. Next is board member announcements. Any announcements?
I'll start down here on this end. Just on a sad note, I would just ask everyone to keep the Divine family in their thoughts and prayers. Norwalk lost a daughter of this city on April 7th. Kelly was tragically passed in her home by herself. She was a championship swimmer for Norwalk High, class of '87, and a true loss to this community and such. So thank you for keeping the Divine family in your thoughts and prayers. On a happier note, I'd like to just give a shout out to Chris Rivera and the Norwalk High winter percussion guard who just traveled out to Dayton, Ohio, and silvered in a national to international competition amongst percussion groups across the country and even internationally, I guess. So this is the third year in a row of doing that. It's a tremendous accomplishment. I know some of the children in the group, and they put in like a 72-hour weekend between driving and running around a gymnasium and competing, and they medaled for us. They represent Norwalk well, and giving them kudos. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? I'll second that. It seems like every time I pick up the newspaper, there's another musical performance group from Norwalk or another sports team from Norwalk that's winning some championship or medal somewhere. It's a really strong part of our educational program. And of course, everybody should make your way over to see the Music Man at Norwalk High School this weekend and next weekend. Looking forward to another, Broadway class presentation over there. Anything else? No? Okay. That does it for the regular agenda. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm going to, this got taken out of order. I'm going to skip the executive session and get the minutes done, and then we'll come back to the executive session. Okay, so minutes. We have approval of minutes. First is March 8, 2016. Is there a motion to approve? Eric moves. Mike seconds. Are there any changes, corrections? Did not see any myself. All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. All opposed? Abstentions? 2 abstentions. Note the secretary, Ms. Mosby, Mr. Kasimis.
I was out that day.
Yep. Next is the minutes of March 15, 2016. There's a motion to approve. Eric moves. Mr. Kasimis seconds. Any changes, corrections? Again, I don't have any marks on mine. I think we're good. All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. All opposed? Abstentions? 1 abstention. Note for the record. Ms. Mosby. And finally is the minutes of April 5, 2016. Motion to approve. Mr. Kasimis moves. Eric seconds. Any changes, corrections? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. Opposed? Abstentions? 3 abstentions, please note. All right. Motion is approved. All right. The chair would now entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing employment of personnel. Mr. Kasimis moves. Eric seconds. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is approved. We'll go into executive session and we'll take our customary 5-minute recess.